This is the Easy Betting Show. My name is Easy, and I still think that intro is awesome. Probably some of my best work. This episode is NFL Week 4 picks, going through the Sunday games. Not the Sunday night game, of course. As always, we're doing the Sunday night game along with the this week 2 Monday night games. So that will be another episode either later tonight or tomorrow morning. Haven't figured out that yet. But we'll get around to it whenever I feel like doing it. It'll be posted a little bit beforehand. Make sure you check that one out as well. But like I said, this one is going to be the Sunday day, afternoon and evening games. So the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games if you're on the East Coast. I'll be going through the player props that I like for that slate, the anytime touchdowns, and then I have a couple of parlays that I'll be posting at the end like I do every single week. And that being said, I'm going to get right into it. I don't have nearly as much this week as I have in previous weeks just because there wasn't a lot that I loved this week. So I only have like 6 player props and then some touchdowns, whereas I've done a lot more in the past. So let me know if you like more like this with fewer ones, or if you like more like I've done in the past. Make sure to let me know on that one. But I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to talk about one specifically first because it is kind of a question mark around it. And I will be updating on my Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, account, which is the @ that's on the screen. So make sure you check that out, because if something does change on this play, I'll update it there. But it's Chris Olave over 66.5 receiving yards. It's minus 113. I'm putting 1.2 units on that. He had a hamstring injury today in practice. So he's day-to-day right now. I don't know what that means for the game. So if he's out, we're going to change the play. And if he's, not going into the game 100%, then we're probably going to change it over as well. Probably to Alvin Kamara receiving yards, which if y'all have watched me before, y'all know I like Kamara's receiving yards. He's banged up as well, but he practiced yesterday and today. So he's most likely playing on Sunday. But if Olave plays and if he's healthy, which is a big question mark right now, I am betting Olave's receiving yards because I love his line right now pre-injury. 66.5 receiving yards. He's covered that in 2 of the 3 games after a slow start in week 1. He's back to being wide receiver 1 with his targets. I think he had the most receptions last week. If not, he tied with Kamara. So he's right there on pace now. He's the guy, it seems, in this passing game once again, as he should be. They're also playing the Falcons, whose secondary has given up at least 75 receiving yards to a receiver in every game they've played so far this year, including 85 yards to George Pickens, who obviously plays on the Steelers, and they don't even really pass the ball. So the Falcons give up a ton of yards to receivers, and I think that there's a very good chance that if Olave is playing and he's healthy, or at least decently healthy, he can easily cover this. But again, Kamara would be the backup if something happens to Olave. So again, I'll update that, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now because I love one of the two. It's just a matter of which one's going to be the healthiest. Next one that I'm going to do is Chris Godwin over 64.5 receiving yards. That's minus 120, 1.2 units on that one. I bet this last week and it didn't hit, but that's the only game Chris Godwin hasn't covered this line in. And he was only 10 yards short last week in a terrible offensive outing from the Buccaneers. I don't expect them to do that again this week. I think they get their offense going again. And on top of that, they're playing an Eagles secondary that has been pretty bad this year, kind of surprising to a lot of people. They've given up at least 86 yards to a receiver in all 3 games, and Chris Godwin should be right in there with the stack of the guys that have been able to do that against them. So I think he's got a great chance of hitting 65. I also think he's got a good chance of going over 100 again as well, so you can sprinkle that if you really like Godwin like I do this week. He's already hit over 100 once this year, 2 weeks ago, and I think he's got a pretty good chance of doing that again, and they're going to need him in this game to beat the Eagles. And Mike Evans just doesn't really seem like the guy anymore for this Buccaneers team. Godwin kind of seems to be Baker's number 1 target, especially going down the field, especially on third downs. Baker just seems to look at Godwin pretty much exclusively. And then, maybe Mike Evans steals some touchdowns from Godwin, but I don't see him stealing a whole lot of targets at this point just because it seems like Godwin's the guy. Next one I'm going to do is Najee Harris over 64.5 rushing yards. That's minus 113, so 1.2 units on that one. The Steelers have been very dependent on the run game in the season so far. It's pretty much that and their defense, mainly their defense, but also the run game is a huge part of why they're 3-0 right now. And Najee is a big part of that. He's hit over 65 yards in all 3 games, but he's basically been at 70 yards in all 3. I believe it's like 70, 70, and 69, which is kind of weird that he's been right there every game. But I actually think he's got a chance of hitting over that 70 mark in this one, because he's going against the Colts defense, and their rush defense is horrible. They've let 2 teams go over 200 rushing yards against them so far this season, and each of those had a 100-plus yard rusher. Najee Harris could easily get to that exact same number, and the only team that didn't get those kind of rushing stats against the Colts was the Bears, who can't really do much of anything on offense right now. So I think Najee has a great game here. He's another guy where bet is 64.5, but then maybe sprinkle the 100-plus yards as well, because I do think he has a really good game. The next one is Bo Nix over 27.5 rushing yards, minus 113, 1.2 units on that one. He had 46 yards on the ground last week in the first game where the Broncos actually looked like they managed to piece the offense together and they actually started to click. Granted, it was against, the Buccaneers, whose defense is kind of question marky, but still they've looked decent, and Broncos just kind of seem to finally piece it together. In the other 2 games, he had 25 and 35 rushing yards. So I think he's going to be looking to run potentially even more, if not the same that he has so far in the season. And then on top of that, they're playing a Jets defense that could get some pressure, and he can get some rushing yards off of those scrambles on top of some design stuff that they will most likely have for him. And the Jets defense has also allowed 61 rushing yards so far this season, but they've played teams where the quarterbacks aren't necessarily rush friendly guys, and they've still managed 61 rushing yards. So to have a quarterback that is actually, built to run the ball, he should be able to get even more. Next one is Andy Dalton over 1.5 passing touchdowns. This is plus 130, so I'm going to put a unit on that. He had 3 last week since taking over for Bryce Young. The offense actually looked good. Now, granted, they were playing the Raiders, so how much can you really say they're better as opposed to they were just playing the Raiders? But Andy Dalton did actually look pretty good. And even after he lost Adam Thielen, he was still able to move the ball and get it to the other receivers, mainly Deontay Johnson. So there's a very good chance that he can do that again against this not very good Bengals team that has allowed 2 touchdowns to be thrown against them in 2 of the 3 weeks. And the only time that they didn't have that was when Jacoby Brissett was back there for the Patriots, who just don't throw the ball. So the Bengals are a great opportunity for Andy Dalton to go out there and repeat his pretty much same stat line as he did against the Raiders. And at plus money for 2 touchdowns, I think this is a great bet. The last player prop that I have is Carson Steele over 44.5 rushing yards, minus 114, so 1.2 units on that one. He had 72 yards last week in his first game as the main back. And even as the backup with Pacheco, he was still getting some yards in there. So I think he's going to continue to be the main back in this one and probably have similar stat lines to what he did last week. And on top of that, the Chargers have given up 60-plus yards on the ground to a back. Jesus. Let me start that over. The Chargers have given up 60-plus yards on the ground to a running back while really only playing one good team so far this year. So it makes sense that Carson Steele should be able to, have a fair bit of runs here, especially if the Chiefs get ahead early and then they're just going run heavy in the second half. But even if it's a close game, which it is a division game, so it could stay close, I still think he gets his touches, 16, 18 touches probably, and there's a very good chance he gets over 45. I think he probably gets close to that 70 mark again. That is the player props that I like for this one. The anytime touchdowns that I have, I got 4 of them again this week. And they're my favorite 4, so I'm just going to go with my favorite 4 for this week. The first one is Najee Harris, plus 110, 1 unit on that one. I think it's nuts that he's plus money here. I've put out why I like his yardage. I like his touchdown for the exact same reasons. I think he has a good chance of scoring. The next one is Alvin Kamara, plus 110, 1 unit on that one as well. Like I said earlier, he is banged up, but he should be good to go for this game. And I think it's just too good of a chance for him not to score. The only way he doesn't score in this one is if he doesn't play. That's honestly my opinion. And again, the fact that it's plus money is crazy. The next one is Saquon Barkley, minus 145. So I'm going to put 1.5 units on this one. It is juiced up pretty high, but I think Saquon just has a great chance of scoring here. I didn't take his yards because I think they may try to throw the ball a little bit more in this one, and the number was just a little too high. He does have a good chance of hitting it, but I just like his touchdown a little bit more, even though it's juiced. The Buccaneers are a team that obviously, once you get in the red zone, the running back has a great chance of scoring on. And so I think he absolutely gets one in this one. And then the last one is Carson Steele plus 120, 1 unit on that one. I had this last week and it didn't hit. I don't think he doesn't find the end zone 2 weeks in a row. And the Chargers, again, are a team that gives up yards on the ground. And Carson Steele, last week, once they got inside the 5, they used him. He just couldn't find his way into the end zone. I think this week that changes. And then the last thing that I am going to talk about is the parlays that I have. Those are the 3 that I'm going to talk about. The one in the middle, the plus 1,500, is the 4 touchdowns that I just talked about. Those are the 4 favorites that I like for this week, so why not just parlay them together? So those are the first parlay, plus 1,500. I have a half unit on that one. I really like that parlay. I think it's got a great chance this weekend. The next one, I'm going to talk about the one on the left. That's kind of my crazy touchdown parlay, which it's not crazy, but it is obviously a lot more than the 4-leg. 5-leg parlay plus 17,000. Deontay Johnson, I think he's got a great chance of scoring this week. You know, I have Andy Dalton over 1.5 touchdowns. He's got to throw it to somebody. Thielen got hurt last week, and Deontay Johnson seemed to be the guy that stepped up for that offense. So I think he's got a great chance to score again this week. Justin Jefferson, obviously, you kind of have to go Justin Jefferson the way he's been playing so far this year. Also, the Packers secondary has not been great so far this year, and they've been giving up a lot of deep balls. They've been giving up a lot of touchdowns. Justin Jefferson should be able to scorch that secondary. The next one is Demarcus Robinson. This is basically just a fading the Bears. Somebody has to score. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are both out. I think there's going to be a passing touchdown for the Rams. So take your pick of which one you like. I think Demarcus Robinson has the best shot at it. Dallas Goedert, again, A.J. Brown not practicing. Devontae Smith has already been ruled out. Dallas Goedert had a massive game last week when those two guys, when A.J. Brown wasn't playing and then Devontae Smith went out. So there's no reason to think that Goedert isn't going to be the target if A.J. Brown doesn't play as well as Devontae Smith. And even if A.J. Brown does play, he's not going to be 100%. So Goedert still may see the bulk of the targets, especially in the red zone. And then the last one, Terry McLaurin. He had a massive game last week for the Commanders in prime time. I think he's got a great shot of scoring here again as well because the Cardinals are not great against wide receiver ones. They give up a lot of deep passes, and Jaden Daniels finally figured out, hey, I need to throw it to this guy. So I think he's going to try to push it towards him a lot more. And then the last parlay that I have for this weekend is the 3-leg 2 touchdown parlay plus 39,000. Haven't hit one of these yet. Did decently last week. I think we hit 2 of the 3 legs or 2 of the 4 legs. I don't know. I hit Charbonnet and I hit Derrick Henry. So hopefully we can get all 3 legs this week and cash out on a really great parlay. It's 3 guys that I've already talked about. Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris, Saquon Barkley. I think all 3 of these guys have a great chance of scoring twice. Now, if Kamara is actually banged up and doesn't play, or there's news between now and Sunday saying he's more hurt than they're saying he is right now, then I would switch Kamara out probably for Carson Steele. But as of right now, I think Kamara is going to be fine for Sunday, and I really like his chances of scoring. Same with Najee Harris. Like I said, the Colts rushing defense just suck. So there's no reason to think he can't score twice unless he gets one stolen from him, which is the case with anybody. So you got to kind of take that into account no matter who you put in these. And then the third one, Saquon Barkley. Again, same reason I like him for his anytime. There's a great chance he scores twice here just because the receivers that are normally on the field aren't going to be on the field. So they could just try to ground and pound and get him in the end zone twice. That does it for me for this episode. Like I said, either later tonight or tomorrow will be the Sunday night and the 2 Monday night football games. So make sure you keep an eye out for that one. I will post on YouTube a few hours in advance to give everybody a heads up. And then I'll announce it on my Twitter as well. So if you're not following me on Twitter, make sure you go follow me. And that will do it for this one. Make sure you like the video. If you haven't liked the video yet, helps me out. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I don't know why you wouldn't be subscribed already. I've told you like 20 times at this point. And yeah, appreciate everybody that hung out. I'll see y'all in the next one.